Hello everyone, it is Obsley 2003 here. I am writing solo for this special treat. I went ahead, I was able to see the Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City of the bunch. I've been the only one who's been able to see it so far, so I'm gonna go ahead and fly solo this time to give my input and review of Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. And if you haven't yet, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel here, Odds Gaming, where you'll find all our exclusive content and antics here on this channel. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kick off into the movie. Yes, so this is a reboot. The previous franchise was, I think, Paul Anderson and Mila Jovovich. They were the spearhead of, I believe, 6 movies that they put together. Sony went a different direction. They decided to reboot the franchise. This does not have Melia. It's not done by Paul Anderson. They are out. This is completely a brand new take on the Resident Evil movie franchise. And with that being said, from the picture I just kind of grabbed off the internet, here are your main characters. And from the bottom left, it's Leon, Claire in the middle, Wesker to the right of Claire, and the top two, that is Chris Redfield, which is Claire's brother, and Jill Valentine, top right corner. So that's for the most part the cast right there. And the movie starts off where it's kind of a backstory, which none of the movies really did, or the video games. They start off with Chris and Claire in a orphanage in Raccoon City. And I believe their parents died in some type of car crash when they were small kids. And so yes, they're being raised in an orphanage, by which um, Claire wakes up to some creepy hand trying to like wake her up or just kind of reach out to her. And it seems like this isn't the first time this is happening. And her brother Chris, which they're sharing a bed, just tells her, "You didn't see anything. Go back to sleep. Just pretend it didn't happen." So it seems like this is not the first time this is happening. So um, Claire goes to investigate, sees this little kid who looks, I want to say, deformed. She's kind of wearing a mask. Can't really see her, but you see her like she has a bunch of sores all over her. She's wearing this kind of sideways mask, and she's kind of hiding in the tent in another room. When the light turns on, someone comes in. A character coming in the lab coat, which later you find out is holy moly, I'm drawing a blank. He's a scientist, and I apologize, I'm trying to remember his name. Um, but he's Birkin. He's the scientist who creates, I believe, the G virus. I want to say William Birkin. I was getting William and Wesker confused, but no, it's yes, William Birkin. And it's, this is a different approach because the previous films that were done by Paul Anderson and Milla Jovovich, they created a brand new character, Alice, who incorporated some of the lore of the Resident Evil games into the movies, but they kind of went their own direction. This movie was more true to the video games, which I'll get more into in a moment. But yes, so that was the case. Um, William Birkin sees Claire, takes her back to the room where all the kids are sleeping, kind of keeping an eye on her. And they show in a later scene, looks like William Birkin was trying to pull Claire away to she supposedly air quotes was gonna get selected for a family and that they were gonna take Chris later. She ended up breaking away from them. I guess kind of they don't show what happens, but she breaks away from them and she kind of escapes. But that's like the past tense or the past. It cuts to the current time, which takes place September 30th, 1998, blast from the past. So what happens there is Claire grew up. She left Raccoon City a long time ago. For whatever reason, she's coming back to town because she got a very cryptic message from someone who lives there in Raccoon City saying Umbrella is poisoning the town. So she wants to go investigate because her brother, all grown up, is Chris Redfield, which they didn't really mention in the movie, but he's part of the STARS um, special special tactics and rescue squad, and They don't really mention that, but they're kind of an elite division in the police department. And she wants to go to him for help to see what's going on here. By this time, with them being all grown up, um, in the Raccoon City, Umbrella is it's the big factory or the big money draw in the city. Without Umbrella, there is no community, no city, and which is the case. For whatever reason, Umbrella is pulling out of the city to relocate elsewhere, and as a result, the city is dying because that's their lifeblood. And basically, there's a small skeleton staff left at the Umbrella facility, and the only people that are pretty much stuck in the city are the poor and like essential workers, basically, for that city. And the opening scene kind of shows off where, as Claire grown up, it pulls from Resident Evil 2. It shows the trucker in the gas semi truck grabbing the sandwich from the dashboard, taking a bite out of it. But in this one, he's talking to Claire. Claire's hitching a ride from him, and he's trying to hit on her. And it's a cold, stormy night, and he not paying attention on the road. There's someone crossing the street. Lo and behold, it's a zombie. Hits said zombie, and they go investigate. It's like, oh no, no, what's going on? And that's when they find out that there's they're trying to figure out how to proceed. They turn their back to said zombie. The zombie leaves. It this kind of flees the scene. It kind of sets the tone. And for whatever reason, they freak out, but they say, like, oh, I guess they're okay, and they drove away. But I'm not gonna try and give a whole review of the movie, but basically, what that's kind of how it starts. So um, Claire and Chris have a very estranged relationship. She basically left Chris behind. Chris went to the academy. He became the elite police, and he's um, he's not very happy when he sees her. All the while, um, that's when they kind of start introducing the other characters. There's Leon, as I mentioned earlier, from what you can see in the picture. Um, the movie is pretty cool. It takes place again in the span of a night and in about 6 to 8 hours. Um, Ship breaks down. There's a huge um, explosion due to the semi truck because one reason or another he gets infected, similar to the Resident Evil 2. He comes barreling into the city, crashes a semi, sets a huge explosion, and with that, everyone's kind of gets split up because the the police bunch, Chris, Jill, Wesker, they go to the Spencer estate, which is the mansion. The mansion is from Resident Evil 1. They go there. Claire kind of meets up with Chris at the police department because, of course, it's from Resident Evil 2, the video game. It's Chris's first day on the job. And in the movie, it is Leon's first day on the job. It's kind of not hectic, but the way they portrayed Leon's character, he he wakes up late in the hotel. Next to him, there's like a Jack Daniels bottle, I believe, and then the next scene's like him with his head down at the diner. Throughout the movie, they kind of made him a klutz. Like the only reason why he became a cop was because his dad's a hotshot big shot in some big city that they didn't mention. So it's like Leon's kind of in the shadow of his dad, which they didn't give any more information about. But um, they all have to work together. They're trying to figure out what's going on. And what Claire stumbles upon from this insider who's leaking information, she watches an old VHS tape. This person is claiming that somehow Resident Evil, Umbrella spiked the water. And as a result, the town has been slowly getting some type of virus through the water. And later on, that shows and it's confirmed that yes, all the town, all the poor town folks that got stuck behind, they're changing. They're slowly turning into zombies. Somehow they didn't get too much into it, but the I guess like the police force, the essential people that they didn't want getting sick, they were given some type of vaccine where they were immune to the change. And it ends up leaving from the police station back to the orphanage because in the orphanage there's a secret passage that leads to the Spencer mansion. And all the while they're trying to figure that out, there's a few puzzles here and there that they have to solve. Wesker, which if you've seen from the previous Resident Evil movies and the video game franchise, he's a bad guy. He's always worked for Umbrella secretly. He was always working on these projects. He himself is infected with one of the viruses, and he's just an evil badass. And around that time when it came out, the Matrix was real big. So if you see him, he's usually like all in black, black leather, black glasses, black trench coat. So he's the typical bad guy, all in black. In this movie, he's not quite there yet, but they say he wasn't working for Umbrella, but there was this other big corporation which gave him a lot of money to expose Umbrella, to reveal whatever secrets, which is what he was after, because they tip him off saying that the threat's real, that the town is going to be wiped out in 6 hours, which is going to be, I believe, 6 a.m. The next day. So all the while, again, this is all taking place in the span of a night where they're trying to survive and get through all this. And stuff happens. They do mention the T virus, the G virus, and um, there is a big kind of boss fight at the end. I'm trying not to give too much spoilers away for anyone who wants to see the movie, but they there is a pretty big fight scene towards the end, and it leads from the Spencer Mansion to the like an underground train system, which again was kind of at the end of part two, which was a huge boss fight. So if anyone who's played Resident Evil 2 would know the the plot there. And it gets pretty good. I'll leave it at that. It kind of maybe leaves room at the end of the movie for a sequel, but they don't really. It was a happy ending. Could there be sequels? Yes, it's to be determined. Obviously, there's what, 8 Resident Evil games. There's a lot of content that they can build off of, and obviously there is what, 6 other Resident Evil movies with Paul Anderson, Emilia. So the hope is there. I, for one, being a fan of the video games, I really love the movie a lot. This one, the other ones with Emilia, I love Emilia. She's good. Um, I love the Fifth Element. Her Resident Evil movies, I can appreciate what they're trying to do, going a different direction with the lore and all that. But towards the end, I only like the first 2 films. The others I can do without. But for true video game fans of the franchise, this movie was awesome. I recommend it. There are some Easter eggs in this movie for anyone who's played the game, and for anyone who hasn't played the series or the games, at least the first two. These probably went way over your head, which I'm just gonna kind of go in depth with right now for the Easter eggs. I kind of touched base earlier. The trucker, they kind of did that scene for scene where he reached for the sandwich, took a bite out of it, and he hits said zombie. That did happen in the movie, so that was pretty cool. The other one that happened was early in the movie. They're kind of showing the characters off. They're showing um, Wesker, Jill, and some other stars teams. Wesker and Jill having a playful bet. Jill wins. At the time, Wesker's eating a sandwich. Jill steals his sandwich away and she says, "Oh, this is mine now. It's a Jill sandwich." That made me laugh because the Jill sandwich is a reference to Resident Evil 1. It's one of the very first puzzles in the game. And you're in the mansion, the Spencer mansion, and there's a shotgun hanging on the wall. You have to replace the said shotgun with a broken one. If you don't do that, you lift the shotgun off these hooks, the ceiling starts to collapse on you. It's very slow, but if you don't solve the puzzle, you'll basically get squished to death. And there's a cutscene where Barry, who's not in this movie, he hears you in distress, and he breaks the door open the last minute. It's like, "Oh, Jill!" he pulls you to safety. And I can't remember word for word their conversation back and forth, but in the end, Barry's telling Jill, "Oh, Jill, I'm so glad you're safe. You could have been a Jill sandwich," referencing her being squished. I'm not sure why that was the pun or whatever, but nonetheless, that was something that was from the video game that they mentioned in the movie, and I thought very subtle. That was very cool how they did that. Kind of in the same scene, they're at the diner. They're making small talk. Jill's talking to the rest of her elite peeps. She's like, what do you think would be a worse way to die? Getting eaten alive by a giant snake or a shark?" Which again was very funny because that is making a reference to the first Resident Evil game. Because again, Spencer Mansion, one of the rooms, you do have to fight a giant snake. You have your weapons, you have your arsenal, and eventually it makes two appearances, I believe. But if you fight it off, it goes into this giant hole, leaves you alone. Or if you, for whatever reason, are unable to defeat it, it will eat you. It kind of shows a little cheesy cutscene. Again, this is PS1 graphics back in the day, but it will pretty much eat you whole. Later on, there is in the same game, Resident Evil 1, you're in the secret facility underground, the lab facility. For whatever reason, they have a giant shark tank. And at one point, the tank breaks. And there's, I believe, at least one or two sharks wandering there. And the water at this point is waist level, so you have to kind of run from room to room. And if you're not fast enough, the shark will nibble at you, and eventually, if you're weak, it will eat you and leave a huge bloody mess. So I thought that was pretty cool little um, reference there. And um, another little thing they kind of show in the trailer is itchy tasty, and that's one of my favorite little lines in the movie. Going back to the game, um, itchy tasty is very fun because in the movie, Claire is breaking into her brother's house, and when she's doing that, his neighbor next door, there's a little kid, looks sickly, and there's his mom, and they show her in the trailer, and she has very thinning hair. She kind of looks like a cancer patient, a cancer survivor. Her hair is super thin. She looks very sickly, and it looks like in blood. She's writing on the glass, "Itchy, tasty," and that is a very good reference to going back to the first film, Resident Evil 1. I'm sorry, the first game, because when you're wandering the underground laboratory, you find a journal. And in the journal, it is one of the scientists, I believe. He's talking basically his unfortunate encounter because there's some type of the lab leak, obviously, where the lab basically goes in lockdown. Everyone who's there is stuck. And with him being exposed to the virus, not necessarily bit, but by, I guess, breathing it in, he's slowly dying. And unfortunately, it's a slow transition. He's talking about the grim reality of he's stuck here, there's nothing he can do. And within these pages of the diary, the entries become less and less. They start making less sense. He starts talking about very sound paragraphs, and then in the later pages, he talks about his hair starting to fall out, his teeth falling out, and then he's talking about him getting hungry. I think he kills his friend to eat him, and then towards the end, he's just talking about his skin getting very itchy, and then that's when he eats his friend, and his last entries in the journal is itchy, tasty, and that's kind of how it leaves. I believe there's blood on it. Again, reference to the Resident Evil game, super awesome. I really like that a lot, and um, one of the other scenes, Chris Redfield and his partner, they're into the mansion, and that's when they are trying to call to someone because someone's on his knees, and he slowly turns his head. Again, scenes in the trailer. That's from Resident Evil 1 when you're leaving the dining room, you go into a room. That's when you see the very first zombie in Resident Evil 1. I thought that was really cool that they fit that scene in there. I like that a lot. Um, they kind of kept true to those zombies. In this movie, They're kind of fast zombies. It's in between the slow shamblers and kind of fast. They're not running like 28 days later, but they still kind of have some pep in them. But I really did like that scene later on in the movie. Um, Getting towards the end, there's Wesker and Jill. They're paired off together. They're in the mansion. They're trying to figure out what's going on, trying to find survivors. At this time, Wesker has a PDA. If you don't know what that is, Google it. It's a thing back in the day in the late 90s, early 2000s. My friend had one. Esp had one actually, so he would get the reference. But there's a PDA, and in this giant, very elegant room, there's a piano in the middle of it. And as soon as I saw that, it's like, oh shit, are they gonna do it? Are they gonna do it? And he's there. He sits down at the piano. Jill's like, what are you doing? He's like, let me just try this real quick. On the PDA, that's showing him kind of what keys to push, and he plays a very small portion of Moonlight Sonata, which again is a puzzle in Resident Evil 1 to to unlock some doors to get some puzzle pieces to progress the game. I was so happy that they fit that in there, and that was it made me happy. It made me very happy. I was very giddy when I saw that scene. Another one towards the end, Jill's trying to get not Jill, Claire Redfield. She's trying to get into the mansion. She comes across the little um let's say deformed girl from the beginning. The deformed girl is all grown up. She's still kind of deformed, wearing a mask. She saves Jill. Just keep saying Jill. She saves Claire and company. Claire's asking this girl like, how do we get into the mansion? Because she's able to go back and forth, and she leads them to a secret elevator, and she hands Claire a set of keys. And then the keys themselves, they're the special keys from Resident Evil 1, where it has shows like the spade, the diamond, um, maybe another one, but it's basically like um, the cards that are from the keys, special keys that you have to use to open certain doors. And it was very subtle. It was just the changing of the hands from here's a set of keys. It stayed on their hands for just a couple of seconds, but the fact that they added that in there, I really like that a lot. And I kind of mentioned it before, but from doing some reading about this movie, when they were trying to make put the movie together, it was really cool because the director, the cast, they've played the Resident Evil games, and one scene from Resident Evil 5 that I was recently playing with Augie the Froggy, um, there's a scene where there's a giant boulder and you have to push a lot of button mashing because in the button mashing you're basically punching this giant boulder to knock it down in to lava to save Shiva, who's getting chased by a mutated Wesker. And it just seemed very silly. It's like one of those dumb things. But in the talks of this movie, the director wanted to try and incorporate that where Chris was going to uppercut like a giant boulder. Um, the actor who played Chris was up for it. He wanted to do it, but they just couldn't quite fit it in. So they decided to scrap that idea, but not to say that they might squeeze it in later. But I thought that was funny that they mentioned that. Um, Overall, I did like the movie. To me, it seemed like it was very, very, very subtle, but maybe it was just the lore. But I saw some kind of Silent Hill references because in the beginning of the movie, when they're taking Redfield back to bed, there's this little bunny just in the background. It's on a chair, and that bunny to me looked like the same bunny from like maybe Silent Hill 3. I never really played it, but to me it looked like the same, and like the looked like the head nurse or receptionist. She had like the Silent Hill nurse outfit from Silent Hill 1. Maybe it's just the that nurse outfit back in that time of the late 90s. It was like all white, the red sweater, little nurse hat. But to me, that's kind of has some Silent Hill vibes to it. So maybe, I don't know. We'll see what happens there. Um, Again, locations of the movie for the most part being span of the night. It was the RPD, Raccoon Police Department, the Spencer Mansion, the train. They incorporated this orphanage. Um, Monsters. They obviously had their zombies, zombie dogs, uh, Chief Irons. Um, they did kind of he had that little part in it. Some zombie birds. William Birkin eventually becomes he injects himself with the G virus, so he becomes kind of like a tyrant. And they do also incorporate a liquor, so I thought that was pretty cool. Um, like I said, my biggest peeve with it was how they portrayed Leon. In the movie, he was very incompetent. He didn't know what he was doing, even for like just being a rookie. Like I would imagine he has some police instincts, want to become a cop and all that stuff. And in the movie, they kind of made him very incompetent. It took him a while before he can finally get his shit together. But all the while, he was just like, again, just kind of bumbling around. And in the games, despite it being his first day on his job, he was like a straight arrow, calm, collected. Okay, this is real bad, but we gotta push through this. Obviously, in the later games, even like the animated movies, he just becomes a badass. He's shit. He's looking after the president's daughter in Resident Evil 4. So that is not the case in this movie. Which I'm curious if they're able to make more movies, how they're gonna grow his character. It's gonna be a huge 180 if like here he's just fumbling around to like okay, I'm now a mediocre badass now. Um, Again, these movies are completely different from Melia and her bunch. And there, Melia was like the badass. She's doing somersaults, jumping around. She has special powers. She doesn't have special powers. She has special powers again. These are regular average Joes that are in a bad situation. The movie's gritty. It's dark. The movie's rated R. I liked it for what it was. I'm not sure what the budget was for the movie, but I heard it was a fairly low budget to make. Some of the scenes does show that there's some scenes, or not scenes, but like promotional pictures, I guess, where it shows like Leon and Claire in the sewer and they're kind of like posing. I'm not sure if I don't remember if that was actually in the movie or it's just like something that they did for publicity. But looking at that picture, had I known that that was not part of the movie, I would have thought that's just someone cosplaying Resident Evil 2 semi decently. But overall, the graphics were pretty good. CGI, the acting for what it is, it's a video game movie. It's like it's not no Oscar nominees or anything like that. But aside from them kind of doing Leon bad that way, I really liked it. Again, it's a movie I wouldn't mind watching again. I will own this movie once it becomes available. I will buy the physical copy. For fans of the Resident Evil video games, this is definitely up your alley. Do not pass it up. And unfortunately, um, movie-wise, from the opening weekend, from what I read, the movie bombed. It did not have a good opening. I'm not sure what the dollar amount of what the budget was to make the movie, but overall, um, it made around $8.8 million dollars. So hopefully that's enough where they'll make another movie and um, hopefully again with once it comes out on demand and on physical copies to buy, it'll increase number profit wise. Because for the lowest grossing movie with Melia, those movies, it was the final chapter. That lowest film was at $13 million. So this one was at 8.8. Still decent, but hopefully it's enough to make more. I don't want this to be a one and done. It would be a shame if it was. Apparently it just bombed because a lot of people just are not familiar with the video games lore. This is from the game was from 96, 98, like over like yeah, 20 years ago. So all those Easter eggs I was kind of going over, for anyone who hasn't played any games, that would have completely gone over their head. They would have just completely missed it. I'm pretty sure there was some other Easter eggs I may have just missed or just forgot to reference. That may not be all of them, but it was it was a fun movie. It was a very good tribute to the two games. They kind of meshed Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2 together. They made it work. They incorporated the locations, the action. Um, yeah, I really enjoyed it. And that's kind of my piece on the Resident Evil. Um, Hope you enjoyed it. If you've seen the movie, Let me know what you think in the comments. Hopefully, I swayed you to watch it, or even if I swayed you not to watch it, let me know with your feedback. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up with my overview of Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. But yeah, I'm obviously 2003 here at Odds and Ends Gaming, where again, if you haven't yet, be sure to like, share, subscribe, where you'll find our exclusive content here for such movie reviews, game reviews, um, our Shoot the Shit Friday, Shoot the Shit Saturday, Fallback Friday. But yeah, that's gonna be me wrapping it up here again. Um, like, share, subscribe. Let me know your comments or your feedback on this little segment. But let's wrap it up. Stay safe out there and don't forget to settle down.